Today, we're continuing our discussion on the political philosophy of Thomas Paine by looking at his book, Rights of Man. This groundbreaking book was written in response to Edmund Burke's conservative critique of the French Revolution, and it got Paine in a lot of trouble with the powers that be. Let's take a look at what he said and why it almost cost Paine his life. The publication of Rights of Man coincided with a period of intense political upheaval in late 18th century Europe. The French Revolution had ignited a wave of revolutionary fervor across the continent, while the British government, fearing a similar uprising at home, cracked down on dissent. Well-regarded elite political thinkers, most notably Edmund Burke, wrote critiques of such revolutionary ideas, emphasizing the importance of tradition, order, and religion. In addition to the violence and discarding of traditional power structures, Burke opposed the revolutionaries' emphasis on abstract natural rights, arguing that instead rights are rooted in tradition and historical context. He believed that change should be gradual and based on practical experience rather than theoretical ideals. This is where Paine got inspired to write a defense of natural rights, publishing The Rights of Man in two parts in 1791 and 1792. Paine's work was seen as a direct challenge to the British monarchy and aristocracy. It was a smash hit, selling somewhere around 1 million copies. Its message struck a chord with many democratic reformers, Protestant dissenters, craftsmen, and the skilled factory workers in the newly industrial North. In the United States, the book was also widely read, fueling ongoing discussions about the role of the fledgling U.S. government. It inspired many to advocate for greater democracy and social equality, including the abolition of slavery. However, it also drew sharp criticism from the Federalist Party, who viewed his radical ideas with suspicion and hostility. They saw his ideas as too radical and potentially destabilizing for the young American nation. As you might expect, the British government quickly had the book suppressed and banned. Paine was soon charged with seditious libel against the crown. He was forced to flee to France to avoid the hangman's noose after being found guilty of sedition in absentia. There, he was later elected to the French National Convention, where he continued to advocate for his radical ideals. Unfortunately for him, his ideas weren't radical enough for the revolutionaries who were in control of that assembly. So, he found himself imprisoned and facing capital punishment yet again, this time in another country. I'll cover these events in more detail in the next video in this series, but for now, let's examine the key ideas that Paine raised in Rights of Man. The book is seen as one of the most passionate defenses of the principles of natural rights, popular sovereignty, and representative Republican government. At the core of Paine's Rights of Man lies the assertion that all individuals possess inherent and inalienable rights, including the right to liberty, property, security, and resistance to oppression. These rights, he argued, are not granted by any government or monarch, but derive from the natural state of humanity. Consequently, any government that fails to uphold these rights forfeits its legitimacy. This radical notion challenged the prevailing view that rights were granted by monarchs or the ruling class, sometimes called the divine right of kings. In opposing this traditional idea, Paine laid the intellectual groundwork for future revolutions and various popular movements. Also, Paine launched a scathing critique of the hereditary aristocracy and monarchy, viewing them as inherently unjust systems that perpetuate inequality and privilege. He championed a representative democracy based on universal suffrage and the rule of law, envisioning a government that serves the interests of the people rather than those of a privileged few. This vision was revolutionary in an era when monarchy and aristocracy were considered the natural order by most people. Of course, some people today will readily point out that even in a modern representative democracy can end up serving the interests of the privileged few instead of the people. Paine may have realized this vulnerability in representative government, so that could be a reason why he included an outline of an expansive social welfare policy aimed at addressing poverty and social inequality. This was quite a departure from the prevailing laissez-faire economic views of his era, which were heavily influenced by the ideas of Adam Smith's 1776 book, The Wealth of Nations. Paine's vision of a welfare state was far ahead of its time and laid the groundwork for many of the social programs that exist today. Let's examine some of his policy prescriptions. Paine proposed a pension system to provide financial support to all citizens reaching old age. This would ensure that elderly individuals could live with dignity and avoid poverty in their later years. Recognizing that unemployment was often beyond an individual's control, Paine advocated for a system of unemployment benefits to provide temporary financial assistance to those who lost their jobs. Paine strongly believed in the power of education to uplift society. He proposed a system of free public education available to all children, regardless of their social class. He felt that this would provide opportunities for everyone to develop their talents and contribute to society. To support working parents and ensure the well-being of children, Paine suggested providing assistance for child care expenses, including subsidies for child care facilities or direct payments to families. Paine even suggested providing direct payments to young adults to help them establish themselves in life. This could be seen as a precursor to modern proposals for a universal basic income. He also supported the idea of public works programs to create jobs and improve infrastructure, especially during economic downturns. Paine also included some ideas on paying for these programs, primarily progressive taxation and wealth redistribution, which didn't exactly win him any friends within the wealthy political elites. His proposals included a progressive inheritance tax, where larger inheritances would be taxed at higher rates. He believed that this would help to reduce the concentration of wealth and provide funding for social programs. Paine also advocated for a tax on land ownership, arguing that land is a natural resource that should benefit society as a whole. This tax is similar to the land value tax we discussed in our video on geolibertarianism. So what has been the legacy of Paine's Rights of Man? Paine's emphasis on natural rights echoes the Enlightenment philosophy that influenced the American and French revolutions. His critique of hereditary privilege challenged the core of the European social structure. His proposed welfare system laid the intellectual groundwork for modern social safety nets. The book Suppression in Britain highlights the power of ideas to challenge authority. While Paine's controversial views caused him to lose friends and favor late in his life, his influence extended beyond his lifetime, shaping political discourse for generations. His writings are a testament to the transformative power of ideas and the courage required to challenge the status quo. I've included a link in the description to Rights of Man if you want to read it. What are your thoughts on Thomas Paine and Rights of Man? Let me know in the comments and subscribe to the channel so that you won't miss the rest of this series, where we'll be discussing Paine's The Age of Reason and other details of his life and thoughts.